How many people are planning on retiring someday? Someday. Okay, it's kind of like the person is, how many of you plan on selling your company? Well, about 10 years from now. The true reality is 2/3 of business owners won't be able to sell their companies for a variety of reasons. But in fact, it's even worse. When I took my, let's see, I got a few credentials here. Yeah, there we go. So I am a retirement income certified professional. I'm also a registered investment advisor and chartered financial consultant, have a master's in tax, a couple of things. But one of the things that I learned from my studies as a retirement income certified professional absolutely chilled me. And that was that most Americans simply will not be able to retire. Period. Yet alone be able to retire at the level that they were hoping to. Now, does that send chill up and down your spine? Maybe you've got a leak in your glass, but okay, for some of this rest of us though, that's a scary thought. So it began a passion project for me that our team, thanks to Olha, who's our marketing coordinator, by the way, my beautiful wife Vivian, who is now somewhere else, Perla over there, who's in charge of our case management on our insurance practice side, my wonderful sister-in-law Stephanie back there, who thank you Stephanie for that yummy food, and if you guys didn't get the little sesame balls, you got to check them out. They are great. And our niece Charlize, who's beside her there, who gets to work with us this summer. Charlize, thanks very much for helping out. So I think that's everybody from our team. Okay, so, but anyway, I decided to put together and do more research on this topic of retirement planning. And from that, came up with a flyer that's inside each one of your handouts. It's called the Top 10 Planning Mistakes that will keep you from retiring well and what you can do about it. So I don't have time to go through all 10, but we're going to go through some of the big 4, and I'm telling you, it's scary. Americans are in trouble. I'm not sure why that slide is not is coming up that way. Okay, but Americans are in trouble not just politically, morally, relationally, and physically, but I would also say Americans are in trouble fiscally. Okay, fiscally. I was on the phone, I ran out of the office, didn't bring my laptop, so this is from a memory stick, and so evidently it doesn't like it on this computer. Okay, but here's the point. According to Bankrate, 39% of Americans could cover an unexpected expense of $1,000. If you had a $1,000 expense, could you cover it? Only 40% of Americans could. The other 61% would either need to put that on their credit card, borrow the money from their family or friends, or have to do without something someplace else. And that's for $1,000. Is that scary? Here's something else that just came out. I read an article pretty much every day on retirement planning, and I saw the 2019 edition of this just came out, and it's even more sobering than the last one. But, oh my gosh, this is not helpful. Sorry, gang, these slides are all messed up somehow. In the Apple book is not liking our slides. But long and short of it is 21% of Americans have nothing safe for retirement. Nada. Zero. Zero. And another, I think it's 32%, if I remember right, have $5,000 or less. So more than half of Americans have either nothing or $5,000 put aside right now for retirement. Okay, what was really scary is the last one, the last box, which is 12%, didn't even know what they have. That was the scariest number for me out of that whole presentation. Didn't even know what they had. So what is going on? Millennials, I thought, well, maybe it's because the millennials are skewing the numbers. You know, we blame millennials for a lot of stuff, don't we? Okay, we happen to have a couple of really great millennial kids, but, and Olha is a phenomenal millennial. But I thought maybe they're to blame for some of these numbers. Now we can blame them for other stuff, but that having numbers, that's not on them, it's on us. 1/3 of boomers have less than $25,000 set aside. 78% of Americans say they are extremely concerned about running out of money, and then 2/3 believe that they're going to outlive what they've set aside. And I'm going to show you in a minute that you're going to probably, all of us are going to live longer than we think. And the last one is over 50% feel that they're going to have to work past age 65, not because they want to, but because they have to. So my goals for today is just simply to, first of all, share with you a few of the things that I found in my research, and also my studies about why Americans are failing to be able to retire. So forewarned is forearmed, as they say. Number two, I want to talk about some possible solutions. Number three, I also want to challenge each of us to think about how can we better prepare for retirement, whether that's happening next year, 5 years, or 50 years from now. The Rachel McKinney's in the room. So be prepared. It was interesting, coming through this analysis myself, I realized, because I never planned on retiring. Anybody else like me? You never plan to retire? You love what you do so much you never plan to retire. So how do you plan retirement for somebody who doesn't plan to retire? I didn't know quite how to plan for myself, but I thought, you know what, I want to make sure that we have our home completely paid off. So I picked the month and the year, and basically now I know, as a result of going through this analysis myself, so that my wife and I can go do more things because that will be taken care of. So let's dive in, shall we? Let's look at a couple of these things together. First of all, this is the biggest mistake. So if you take nothing else away from my conversation today, this is the one you want to take time this weekend to sit down with yourself, your spouse, significant other, good stiff cup of coffee before you start reading Carl's book about memorabilia. So this is the one you want to start with. First of all, most Americans don't have a written plan. They have no idea. They have no answers to what I call the Four Hal Questions. They don't know, would you go to a soccer match or a football match if there were no yard markers? Where you couldn't tell who was going to score or who's in bounds or out of bounds? Would you go watch an event like that? I don't think I would. And yet most people, yeah, it'd be interesting, certainly colorful. He's out of bounds. How can you tell? So here's the story. So far that I've asked the questions, no one yet has been able to answer all four of these questions, what I call the Four Hal Questions. First of all, how soon? How soon? Well, I'm going to retire when I'm 65. Really? When's that? Well, I know when I turn 65, but no, I want to know what's the month and the year you're planning to retire. Don't raise your hands on this, but how many of you in the room can tell us when you would retire, the month and the year? How about this? How much are you going to need? And we'll talk about in a minute what percentage of your income. There's an incredible amount of glare that's coming off a cooker out there, so if you see me squinting, I'm going to move over here. But it's how much? I mean exactly. What are you going to need for income to be able to travel, to do the other things? What percentage of your income do you need? I'll unpack that more in a minute. But how much? How many is referring to how many buckets? You know, it's not that interesting. Bill's a handsome guy, but just keep watching me up here and, well, thank you, Bill. So, but how many? How many buckets are you going to have? Most of us will have Social Security. Most of us will have some kind of a pre-tax plan. But how many of us have money that they're going to receive after tax? Now, Roth is one way, but most of us won't qualify for a Roth. We make too much money. So what are other alternatives to create pools of money that can come in tax-free? I'll talk in a minute about why that's so important. And then the other part is how long? How long are we going to need that money? Now, Shelley's going to live a long time because she's healthy, she's an athlete, she thinks healthy thoughts. But how many years do we each have? Now, I've set my thermostat for 147. I want to see a new century come in. So I'm planning on being healthy all the way till, but okay. So if Lord tarries and granted long life, we'll get to 147. But what's your thermostat set for? How long are you going to live? We'll talk about that in a minute as well. So Steve Covey taught us to begin with the end in mind. So let's talk about what's retirement look like to you. Some of you, like Olha, can never imagine what retirement looks like at 20 whatever. But for some of the rest of us, it's getting a little bit more in focus now. But what's it look like to you? So let's look at the percentages, and when you retire, first of all, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop work completely? Maybe you're going to volunteer. Maybe you're going to start a new business. Maybe you're going to keep working. You're going to phase out. Maybe you're going to do something else. You know, again, start another company. But whatever it is, you need to get clear on what that looks like. Decide on what are the plans. Steve, your friend, they're doing more sailing. Okay, so you're going to do more hobbies and stuff. But what does that look like? Secondly, what's your lifestyle going to be? So first, let me run 3 lifestyles by you, and you figure out what feels right for you. So here's the first one. You're going to spend less. Most people say, I don't like that one right there. Forget that one. Maybe you will. You know, You're going to have a simpler life. Not in California, but okay. Good health, and you're going to have little to no debt. Does that sound like you? Terrific. If it is, 75%. That's the number. You have 75% of your income, you'll be pretty good. Again, depends on where you live, but that's the number basically you'd be shooting for. How about this one, though? Here's a second one. You're going to spend about the same as what you're making right now. You're going to have a very similar lifestyle, spend doing the things that you're doing now. You're going to go to Ireland occasionally and have some beers like David and just got back. You're going to have some more hobbies. You're going to volunteer more. You're going to do things like that. Well, again, little to no debt. Well, for you, it's going to be 85%. So right now, are you in a position that when you retire, because you know when you're going to retire, you know the month of the day, or you're going to figure it out, and you're going to project how much income you need, that's the number you got to target. It's 85%. Now, if you have another, one of our other clients who they got their kid married off, and she said, gosh, you know, we were able to take that wedding and get her married off, and it was sort of cost $250,000, but we only got it, we were able to get it done for $75,000. I looked at my wife and I thought, wow, what a savings. You know, 75, so, but anyway, for her, I can tell you she's going to be spending more than she spends now, but she's going to have probably a pretty good sized estate, multiple properties, and for her, a lot of travel. So for her, it's 105 to 110%. Whatever it is for you, are you clear? Do you know what your lifestyle is going to look like in retirement? And that's how you can start factoring it back into some of these numbers. Okay, so lack of specifics, no written plan, that's mistake number one. Number two is, I'm a perfectionist. Anybody else in the room a perfectionist besides me? This is bugging the heck out of me to watch these crazy slides. So, okay, yeah. So, and then the timing of the income. When's it going to come in? It does matter. That's one of the reasons why you have multiple buckets, so you know when you can start your income. Again, most people in the room are probably going to know this, but if I'm eligible for retirement at age 66. And so that just because I'm eligible for it doesn't mean that I should start taking it then. In fact, what percentage of Americans start Social Security at 62? Half of Americans. Half of Americans begin Social Security at 62. Why do they do that? Because they can't afford life otherwise. They think it should be easier. Well, when you start at 62, you take a haircut on your benefits. Now, the way it should be done is you wait and you apply. So I would apply at age 66. I file for benefits, but then I tell them, don't send it to me. It's called file and suspend. Because every year you wait past the age when you could start collecting it, your normal retirement age, what we call NRA, you get an 8% increase automatically on your benefits. You know that? So in other words, if you wait just 4 years, your benefits are going to increase by 32% for the rest of your life, plus cost of living, plus if I get hit by a Mack truck, God forbid, my beautiful wife gets my benefit. So it's not for me, it's really more for my wife, even though I'll probably outlive her too. But anyway, sorry, honey. Okay. But this is another reason why you need to keep real estate in your portfolio and equities in your portfolio, because you're going to need it. You're going to need to have gross. You're going to need to go talk to my friend Bill Birch over there and get that mortgage on your property refinanced so you can continue to buy more real estate. Second biggest reason, second biggest mistake. See you, June. We're pulling for you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Is procrastination. Procrastination. I should change that slide, but I'm putting it off. No. So here's what the numbers show, is that most Americans just simply aren't saving enough, but over half, sorry, I'm going to start this again. They're saving less than half of what they should be saving to get to the end goal. How many people heard or were taught you should put away, you should save 10% of your income? I was raised on the save 10, tithe 10, live off 80. Anybody else like me? Throw those numbers out because they don't work anymore. We're living longer, returns on investments are lower. So it starts at 17%. You should be setting aside ultimately 17% or more depending on when you're starting. We'll look at those numbers in a minute as well. Most people can't afford, even on Social Security to retire. The average check is just over $1,400 a month. The numbers of where people spend their money are staggering. This is why people don't have enough money to retire, in part because they're spending it now. They're spending on a lifestyle now. And one of my favorite numbers from this is, what's the cost for an engagement ring nationally in 2018? $6,700, round numbers. What was the cost in California? 2018, just under $10,000 for an engagement ring. Now, I'm sure, in my case, my wife is worth far more than that. But still, the point is, you're taking money from your future. You're spending tomorrow's retirement income today on all kinds of frivolous stuff. Not saying a wedding ring is frivolous, but I'm just saying, sorry? Well, that I don't know, but I can just tell you the numbers part of it. So what we want to do instead is have a positive addiction towards not opiates, but towards savings, towards building money economically. And here's one of the reasons, one of the best things we do for our kids is help them get a positive addiction to setting money away. Now, why do I say that? Okay, if you take a 25-year-old and putting away $400 a month, and I understand that's a lot of money to a 25-year-old, but if you take that money out for 40 years at 70%, it comes to over $1 million. Now, it's ignoring taxes. Can we close the door, please, so we don't have the background noise in the hall or have them move? Thanks. So it's just over $1 million. Now, if you're 35, though, you've procrastinated. You've waited a couple years because you had kids to pay for, or you had to move here, or we were buying or helping the folks. I understand, all good reasons. I'm just telling you the math. If you're 35 and you start $400 a month, at that same 7%, what will that grow to be worth at age 65? How much? Round numbers. Less than half. Less than half, even though it was just 10 years later saving the same amount of money. And do you know what it would take if you were trying to get to over $1 million to basically get to the same place as that 25-year-old? You know how much you have to put away per month starting at age 35? I was even surprised. $925 a month. $925. So again, compound interest. So we want to inspect what you expect is another thing. So where do you spend your money? Now, if I told you that I was overweight and I wanted to lose some pounds, because most Americans say that they want to lose, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, where do you start? Well, you start, first of all, by getting on the scale every day, right? But I don't want to see how much, but it starts with that. We have to get real with what the fact is that I weigh more than I want to weigh, right? So how do we figure out where we're spending our money? We track it. It's very simple. You got to inspect what you expect. You got to track where you're spending your money. And thanks to credit cards and other things that you can do, or your cash debit card, you can usually pull down a report. I'm tracking my time, for example, for 2 weeks. And it's been fascinating already just to see. I break it in 15-minute increments starting from 5 a.m. until I go to bed at night. But that's where I'm helping myself to understand where I'm spending my time so I can make changes. Same thing with money. If you've got to figure out where it's going to be able to figure out how you cut back or where you can save money. Creating a budget. Pay yourself first. How many times have we heard that? Do we do it? Most Americans don't. So part of it is creating savings. Part of it is creating cash. We want to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of income available to us in cash. Do we care about what rate of return we get on it? No. How many of you have a broom in your closet? Oh, come on. Come on. We're not asleep yet. How many of you have a broom in your closet? Every hand up, right? Somewhere there's a broom in your house. Do you care about what rate of return you got on your broom? Alvin, do you care about what rate of return you got on your broom? No. Most of us don't. We have a broom because we need a broom sometimes. So the point of it is when you create the savings, you don't care about what you earn on it. You just need the cash there, but yet most Americans don't even have 1 month's worth of savings, yet alone 3 to 6 months that we should have. Where it starts with figuring out where you're spending your money so you can cut back expenses, build more money, some other stuff. There's some hybrid insurance products where you can put money in. Basically, it grows with no tax, and when it comes out, it's not taxable, but it's invested in the stock market. And there's some great tools out there that we're using today. So, but here, the difference is, here's one more thing to remember, and then we got to wrap it up and land the plane. It's not just waiting a year. So in other words, if you were, I don't care, 64 and you put off putting money aside, it's not about waiting from 64 to 65. Oh, hey, well, it's just $5,000. What difference does it make? Well, for that 25-year-old, the difference is this. It's what it accumulates to in that last year. So many times when we're talking with clients, let's say, well, you know, RJ, we're going to start that corporate retirement plan, and we're going to start setting money into our solo 401k account next year. I think we'll be ready for that. And in their mind, it's only $5,000 that they're waiting on, or $50,000. The difference is this: $75,000 is what they're losing by not putting in that $5,000. Because it's not the difference from 1 year to 1 year to 1 year. The difference is what it doesn't accumulate to in that last year. Does that make sense? So that's the importance. It doesn't matter so much how much we put away. What matters is that we do put something away and get started. Get positively addicted to saving money. One last point is that when we use our credit cards, we'll spend anywhere from 12 to 18% more, the studies show, than if we use cash. Why? Because it hurts when we watch that $100 bill come out to pay for it, as opposed to using our plastic. So if you want to find a great way to start saving money, just pay cash for a week or 2 weeks and see where your cash is going. Okay, so procrastination is one of the biggest things. Question, how long do you plan to live? This is important, so if you bear with me. Is it okay if we go for 5 more minutes? Can we hang together? Okay, if you need to leave, by all means, head out. Take some of my sister-in-law's really good stuff with you, especially the sesame balls. But anyway, if you have to leave, I understand. But how long do you plan to live? Obviously, it's a bit facetious. There's a joke that says the longer you live, the longer you live. But guys, it has really expanded. For us and men, in 1911, 100 years ago, we lived for 53 years on average. Now, 78 years. So in the span of 100 years, we're almost 25 years longer. Women, thank God for women, by the way. So yes, in fact, you live longer. You have a few more moving parts that break down more often, so your health insurance and your disability insurance cost more, but your life insurance is less because you'll live longer than us. It was 54 years 100 years ago. Now it's 82. So it's almost 30 years longer increase in just 100 years. But here's the story. The Uniform Lifetime Table says that if you took a group of people that are 70 years old and took them out to 97.4, half of that cohort, in other words, if you had 1,000, how many of them are still going to be alive 27.4 years from now? So at age 97.4, if you're 70 today, half of them will be dead, but half of them will still be living. That's why you need to keep real estate. That's why you need to keep equities in your portfolio, because you're going to live a whole lot longer than you imagine. And your money has to last longer than you do. And yet most Americans, that's one of the biggest reasons they won't be able to retire, is because they don't know how long they actually are going to live. We're not our parents' or grandparents' generation, folks. We're not their life expectancy. So that's why we need to hone, as I said, these assets in a portfolio, not just as we get older, fixed income, annuities, and those kinds of things. No, we need to keep equities in our portfolio, and that's why we really need to look at this last one, which is, actually, I just interviewed last year Dr. Craig Venter, and Craig is you may not know that name, but Craig and his partner were the ones that unpacked the human DNA. So they mapped the human genome. Fascinating guy. Fascinating guy. And so he told me that within 1 to 2 generations, we're actually going to be at a point of stasis. Now, what's that mean? It means that within 1 to 2 generations, we'll actually pick how long we want to live. We'll be able to decide how long we're going to live. Let's get some scary implications, but beyond that, how long are you going to live? So false assumptions are number 3. You're going to live a whole lot longer in most cases than you ever imagined. So the last one has to do with accumulation of assets and what we call volatility. Do you know what the 4 most dangerous years for all of retirement planning is? The 4 most dangerous years. You know what they are? First 4, it's actually the first 2 just before retirement and the first 2 of retirement. Why is that? Because of this thing called volatility. What's that mean? So let's really quick take a look at the U.S. stock market. We've had 8% return since 1957 on the S&P index, the 500 largest companies in America. So almost 8%. The stocks on average since the inception of time here in America have had about a 7% return. There was one decade where it was 19% on average. There was another decade in the 2000s where it was 1% per year. But overall, it's not a steady climb, but overall, it's been 7%. Now, over the last 30 years, the return has been over 10%. And just as a comparative, if you had been in fixed income instead, you would have only earned about 4%, 4.5%. So that's why you need to have equities in your portfolio, because it dramatically, over twice as much of a return over time. But look at this one. What's the average investor? What have they achieved over that same period of time? 3.79% over the last 30 years. Huh? Why? I mean, the average investor only earned 3.79%, but the institutional investor earned over 10%? What's up with that? So here's why. Because it doesn't matter so much how we make in the good years. What matters is what we don't lose in the down years, in the bad years. So if you lose 15%, you've got to earn 18% just to get to break even. How much do you have to get if you have a 40% loss like we did in 2008? A 40% loss means you have to earn a 67% just to get back to break even. So understanding your investment portfolio, you need to be incredibly attuned to volatility and to the impact of losses. So you won't be able to read this, but what it says is this was the S&P index returns, and for the last 20 years was that chart just a minute ago. But here's, if we look at the 10 years, going from 99 to 2008, there were some awfully good years there, but there was also a big drop. One year it was down by 36%. This is assuming dividends actually paid. So if you didn't have dividends, it was almost 40%. So that means if you started with $1 million in 1999, and you 20 years later, you would have ended up with $1 million. And if you were taking out 5% per year of your starting value, so if we started $1 million, we take out 5%, that's $50,000. So if our goal is, and here we are in retirement, we want to have a steady income, can we take out 5% per year? And the answer is not really. Because of the volatility, what I don't have time to show you right now is the up and down. Because when things go up, your income can go up, but when things go down, your income is going to drop as well. So we only average $42,000 a year. And at one point, our $1 million would have dropped to $500,000, to $520,000. That's one thing to see it on paper. It's a whole other thing to experience it firsthand when you watch your assets go from $1 million and be cut in half. And in fact, the income would have dropped in 2009 to $26,000. Here's a different way of approaching it, though, where we find ways to minimize our losses. So again, snapshot, this is 10 years as opposed to the 20. There were a couple of years where this was minus, but by very little. But I want to point out to you, again, they're not the high highs of the S&P, but they don't have the low lows either. So what difference does that make in terms of our portfolios, in terms of our income and retirement? Huge. Instead of $1 million, we would have had over $2 million in our account at the end of 20 years. Now, again, this ignores the time value of money, but that's still more money, even taking time value money. Having $2 million instead of $1 million, I'll take that. But what did it do from an income standpoint? How did we do that? How did we do there? In fact, we would have averaged $84,000 of income, or more than twice as much as using the S&P index, which 83% of investment managers can't even do as well as the S&P index. So that's the importance of having something in your planning that limits the amount of volatility. The lowest value for this portfolio would have been $1 million. I mean, $1,083,000, that was the lowest. And the lowest income in any year was the very first year when we started taking out 5%. So we got $50,000. That was the lowest year. So which one would you rather have? Bucket number one, $800,000 of income, or bucket number two with almost $1.7 million of income? Over here, $1 million bucks. Over there, $2.1 million. I'll take bucket number two. Anybody else with me on that? Yep. So again, the point of that last one, and what matters more, is what you make, not in the good years, but in the what? What you don't lose in the down years. So wrapping it up, we've looked at 4 of the 10 planning mistakes that will keep you from retiring well. Lack of specifics, not knowing the answers to the 4 Hal questions. We've looked at the impact of procrastination. Again, it's not just what you lose by waiting 1 year, it's what you lose down the road. Underestimating how long you're going to live. How many of you now are excited to know that you're going to live longer than you thought you were going to live? Cool. It's about not what you have with your life, it's what you do with your life that matters, no matter how many years. And then the last one is not understanding the impact of volatility in your portfolio and what you can do to address that. So where does that leave you? I hope that leaves you asking questions and wondering, what can I do to make my retirement, in fact, the kind of retirement that my neighbors are jealous of? That's what we do with Wealth Legacy Group. Help you create right retirement accounts that your neighbors and family are just envious and jealous of. And so again, what will you do when you leave here today? What one step, what one thing can you do to make your retirement better? Along that lines, we do now, because it has become a passion project, we have now started offering a 20-minute complimentary consultation. So if somebody wants to just brainstorm where they are right now and they want some other ideas, we'll do it for no fee. So let us know. We're happy to do that. This is Hot Topics. We want to know what you want to know about. So if this has been helpful today, great. Let us know that. We want to get that feedback. You'll be getting a survey, by the way, from OLHA, either later today or tomorrow, because we want your feedback. Let us know about next year. We're already starting to plan our 3rd season. And with that, I want to thank Chris Kate, Joe Strazzeri, Steve Troop, wherever Steve is, Steve's over there. It's been our pleasure to have you today. God bless. We're not chasing you out of here, at least that I'm aware of. Plenty more good food over there. Stick around if you want. But anyway, good to see you. God bless. Have a great weekend.